Studio Galaxy 473 in Confero. And the number, this time you have the opportunity to call us. The number is 536 2589
2558.
2558. 2558. 536 2558.
WhatsApp and landline.
Yes, you could use the WhatsApp and use the long line. You could make posts on the program, and we'll do everything within our power to read the posts and to take your call. And this part of the program is pure politics. And the topic is political tolerance and mentality change. Political tolerance and mentality change. I believe it is opportune, it is necessary for us to sit and discuss political tolerance in our country. We have to remember that we have a history of conflicts. George Brizan wrote in his book, Island of Conflict. Mr. Blaze thought Grenada was milk on fire. He say you're watching it, you're watching it, you're watching it. As soon as you turn back, you boil up and fall. We have had the experience of Federal Rebellion. When some of Federal generals was executed in the market. And about 10,000 Grenadians make it for Trinidad. When Federal realized that the battle was lost, he already took over Pilot Hill in Grenville. Federal realized that the Laguinades that he expected to lead the group in St. George's turned against him. The Laguinades supported the British. So Federal decided to realize he had failed. Governor Ninian Home was in Paraguay. He was afraid to go over Granite Town because he did not know at that time that the Laguinades had changed side. So while he was making back for over the Belvedere, he bounced up with Fero making over the Belvedere. He was executed. We saw the conflict in 1951 under Eric Gary. Gary was asking for $1 more. But the authorities then, the administrator and others, felt who was Gary to listen to him. They told the British authorities he was only a little black boy that gave him trouble. Don't worry. They did not genuinely prepare to sit down and hold discussion with Eric Gary on the issues, although they were well aware that Gary was seeking the interests of the estate people. Sometimes you wonder if Grenada is not like a recurring decimal. Things got out of hand. We know the story about how we heard, I have to stop saying we know. We heard about the story of Skyred. The British sent on a battleship. And when Sky got moored, they sent 2 battleships. Eventually, they had to sit down and negotiate with Gary to stop Skyred. We had the struggles of 1974, where it appears both sides, Eric Gary and his supporters, and Mr. Blaze, the Alliance, Bernard Code and their supporters, both of them head was hard like rock. There was no common power, no common force to bring the sides together to negotiate. And we knew the turmoil that went on in that period. We got independence. The country was overthrown by Maurice Bishop, the legitimate government then, because Maurice Bishop refused to challenge the irregularities that they claim in the court. Although on paper, it seems that Maurice Bishop and the Alliance had more power and more influence in the court than Gary. And I'm speaking because of the amount of lawyers that was involved in the Alliance, the GNP at that time. Gary only had Derek Knights. No compromise. We saw the bloodshed that took place, the 4.5 years led by Maurice Bishop experiment with the revolution, the coup d'etat. 3,000 people were in prison. Maurice Bishop supervised over the worst crimes in Grenada after slavery and colonialism. And then we saw the Americans invading a small country like Grenada, intervening or rescuing. Depends on which side of the political pendulum you are. You may want to use palatable language that suits you. And I have no problem with that. Those people who was in jail thought they rescued. Those people always claiming they're neutral, they claim they intervene. And those people who were against anti-imperialism say they invaded. You use what terminology you use. Language is situational. And then the Americans' effort to keep Gary out of power. They realized the GNP, the GDM, the NDP, the CDLP, if they ran as independent, Gary might have won all the seats. Remember, after the 1984 election, Gary got 36 point something percent of the votes and one seat. It's the first time we had plain campaigning for a political party. And Grenadians start since the American invaded us. In fact, black wizards say we thought we would be the 53rd state. And for many years, there were some semblance of stability. And perhaps one would say political correctness. In that, every election post 83, the side that lost election conceded defeat within 24 hours and did not challenge the election, although they claim irregularities, never challenged in any serious way. So one would assume that it was only complaining to satisfy the clientele, kind of sour grape attitude. You lose, so you don't want to acknowledge. So our election is considered free and fair and free from fear. The people involved in the electoral processes in Grenada is well respected in the Caribbean. Let me repeat that. The people who involved in electoral office, they are well respected in the Caribbean based upon the regularity, the consistency, the fairness, and the freedom of election carried out in Grenada. We saw Keith Mitchell, the leader of the NNP, Dr. Keith Mitchell, Stone, Jonah, winning election on 3 occasions and winning all the seats and breaking a record in the Commonwealth for the most successful political leader and the most successful political party. We had the election of 2022, free and fair. Deacon won the election. Deacon was not involved in politics before. They propagated, prior to the election, the newness, devoid from every political bitterness, vendetta, viciousness, hate. They were brand new. And I think that was one of the reasons people gravitated to this brand new group of political neophytes. People felt they would be inclusive, they would be tolerant, and they would have a change of mentality because there is no reason, no justification for them to be bitter, full of animosity and hate. The opposite was true. This group, after 2.5 years, is the worst group of politicians ever to lead Grenada post 1967. They are the most bitter and hateful group. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? It's the only group of politicians in Grenada that won election convincingly, managed to lure another member of the opposition to join them, and then declare restorative justice. Restorative justice in its practicality, in its workability, in its application on the ground is nothing short of political vengeance. The government is so arrogant and disrespectful and dismissive of people's opinion that they refuse to advance justification for restorative justice. The government set up a ministry, MIT, for political mischief to help them implement the political vengeance on the street. During the election, the government deceived the Grenadian people. But I believe that they deceived some of their own members, their own executive members. They told them it was transformation. They was excited by it. Some of them didn't even understand what transformation is, it appeared. But they knew it was dramatic change. And they believed that under Deacon Mitchell, they would have dramatic, positive change. Only to be deceived in the worst way. In the worst way. The Prime Minister of Grenada, Deacon Mitchell, said, "We campaign on a policy of transformation. But it is not transformation. It is restorative justice." That was a shocker. And I do believe that it was also a great disappointment for some of the members of the Deacon-led government, because they believe it was transformation, only to realize that they were tricked. They were deceived. Deacon had no intention. Deacon and his team had no intention of transforming anything, but implementing political vengeance and mischief. It is important for us to understand why. They were not in politics before. So who wronged them? Who wronged the 9 members of the NDC? Are they drinking bush for people fever? Why is it they implemented restorative justice? Why is it they set up a department to go wrong and create political mischief in the country? It is important for us to advocate and preach for tolerance and inclusiveness in politics in Grenada. We have to remember, we are not separated by ethnicity. We are not separated by wealth. If there are billionaires in Grenada, they're not Grenadian. And Grenadian millionaires, they poor. Look around you in St. Andrews, St. David's, St. Patrick's, St. John, Carriacou. You see how taking long to call St. George's. And St. George's. And see how much people you see rich that are not working in their business. Some of our rich people don't even get a chance to go on holiday. Look at the people we claim that rich. They don't even have gold chain in their neck. They clothes cheap. And they're working hard. They're not on a yacht in the Pacific. They're not Donald Trump with billions of dollars that could go in government and say, "I will take more money." In fact, you see the members of the government believe that they're not working for enough money. And nothing is wrong with that. That is what they believe. But I'm drawing it to show that Grenadians, some of them have discretionary income, but they are not very wealthy people. So we are not seriously separated by wealth. So why is it the government is so vengeful and bitter? And who did them wrong? I look at this government and I see the viciousness with which they go after the poor of the poor. As if they know the poor of the poor cannot hit back. And when they beg them, the Prime Minister said, take the matter to court. The Prime Minister is well aware that if somebody who working for under $2,000 and they don't have godfather, have to take a lawyer to go to court, then crap or smoke the pipe without tobacco. Because all lawyers are not known to do pro bono to this group of people. They don't bother to do pro bono. When a lawyer do charity, when he do something free, he call it pro bono. But they only do things free for those people who could give them status. Not for the poor of the poor. We saw many people, several, lost their jobs. And when somebody particularly a woman, between 35 to 60 years, who've been working for 18 and 19 years, lost their job, it's difficult to get back on. It's difficult to get back on. We saw caregivers cry tears as the government decided to get rid of them and threaten some of them. And we ask why? Why the government of Grenada is so bitter? Who did them wrong? They were not involved in politics before. So are they drinking bush for people fever? Whose fever are they drinking bush for? And it is against this background that we advocate tolerance, inclusiveness, forgiveness, and mentality change. Our people needs to change their mentality. Politicians in Grenada have to understand that they need to represent the interests of everybody. They need to be inclusive. The policies must be all encapsulating that a country could move forward. Your country cannot move forward with the majority of people in the back. That don't work. Your economy may move forward, but the country wouldn't move forward. The economy could do good, but sometimes the people in the country is suffering. If you have the best hospital in the world, but your people cannot pay for the service, they might be going to the bush, man. They will drink out all the papaye leaf on papaye tree to cure disease. Because they cannot access the medical facilities. And you balance the book so your economy doing well. If we have an education system that is so unproductive that 70% of the people who exit secondary school cannot meet the minimum requirements. And for males, it's much higher. It means, based upon the sophistication of the market today, they would be seriously disadvantaged. They would not be competitive. The government of Grenada have to understand that they need to be inclusive. They need to be tolerant. And they need a mentality change. We can take calls on this program. So the number to call is 536-2558. The voices in Grenada must be loud and clear, telling the government, no, you have to be inclusive. You as the leader, you set the template. If the government ministers is lying without compunction, then the ordinary man going to believe it's all right to lie too. If the government of the day opens the door to corruption, then when the NNP come in power, they may believe, if the priest could play, who is me? If this NDC government get out with corruption, then we got to do the same. Now it's our time come. Then what is going to happen to this country? Decadence will reign. You had a situation with the Procurement Act. I think I get that word right. Procurement. That $15,000 was the highest a politician could provide a contract for without bidding, or the Ministry of Communication or what. Otherwise, you have to bid. You must still have 3 bids. But if it is $15,000 and less, an individual in the ministry, the politician or the Ministry of Communication and Work or the Ministry of Health could make the decision. It's just $15,000. Once it is more, you have to have a minimum of 3 bids. That was put in place to close corruption door, or to minimize, to decrease, to make corruption less attractive. This government came and opened the door. They move it from 15,000, not to 20,000, to $100,000. No bidding for contract up to $100,000. You are hearing that a minister gave a contract to his landlord for $92,000. The landlord subcontract the contract for $52,000. And the subcontractor finished it in less than 1 week. Even if that is not exactly the facts, the rumors outside there could cause corruption to have a rippling effect. Now you must have voices in our country crying out and saying, no, this must not be done. I've always felt and convinced that that day when Vincent Noel called on the 4th and say we have a car with guns, we want 200 people to go with a car to reestablish communication with the rest of the world. That was wrong. Some voices in Grenada should have called out. When Vincent Noel ordered that Bernard Code, Leon Conwell, Liam James, and some others, 7 or 8 people, 910, must report to the nearest police station. There was no voice in the country to say, that is a declaration of war. Let us mediate. When Maurice Bishop evoked the Angola option, there was Grenadians that knew, but there was no voice calling out and saying, no, Bishop, you can't do that. Let us talk. So I scream at this time that somebody must call Dick Mitchell and say to him, you're going down the wrong trajectory. You have to check yourself. Somebody have to remind him that in 1973, the regulation, the laws, the rules that was put in place for the GDB Bank was to minimize the chances, the opportunities to make corruption less attractive for politicians. Somebody have to do it. If those who we believe could do it, don't do it, and the other rest of people don't complain, we are all guilty. The Apollo is worse than the thief. We are hearing what is going on in National Lottery. There must be voices screaming out and saying, no, you have to be more tolerant. You have to be mindful of the law. You ought not to flaunt the law with impunity like that. It's not good. There must be voices. If you flaunting the law with impunity, then the ordinary public worker going to start to flaunt the law with impunity. Businessmen would flaunt the law with impunity. The country take the cue from government. We can't go down that route. Look at the language, the expressions, the utterances that come from government ministers. That is so demeaning, so disrespectful, and so fractious. Where are the moral voices in our country that say, no, you can't do that? We are all one loving group of Grenadians that are not perfect. So you see the leaders, when our leaders set the pace, I'll give you a practical example. If you see me, Galaxy Equalizer, with a bottle of confusion rum walking the street, you wouldn't bother. You can say that Galaxy Equalizer, so they make him. But if you see a principal of school, a medical doctor, a police, a teacher, a priest, a pastor, with a bottle of rum walking the street drinking, it's a whole different attitude towards them. So when these things come from the top echelons of our society, the leadership of our government, it is worse than if it is an ordinary rustic. So where are our moral clans? Those individuals that were there complaining about molehills yesteryear, walking around with morality, good governance, and accountability around the neck, as if it's a gallad. Where are they? Have they lost their tongue? We have the pension issue now. That matter went to court. It is based upon technicality, constitutionality. Now, why is it we are going down the very said route again? We're supposed to have more experience with pension now than 40 years ago. You could say what you want about Bishop then. Maybe his intention was good. It was not Grenada alone that introducing NIS, National Insurance Scheme. As I was reminded by one of my callers, some countries in the Caribbean didn't like the word scheme because they say scheme look as a scamp, skimpish, because of local balance. But other countries was introducing it. So the idea didn't come from Maurice Bishop. But they had Provident Fund. They had the pensions scheme for the Public Service Association, which was a couple of hundred at one time. Then because of the situation, it moved to thousands of people. So the economists decide this is not sustainable. Let us have one pension scheme, NIS. Because you cannot change the rules of the game in the middle of the game, some people will overlap for a period of time. Maybe we didn't dot the I and cross the T. So there were constitutional loopholes. But why we have to be making the same mistake 40 years after? Why? Isn't this time my mind has come to the Bar Association? Sometimes I believe individual lawyers are very, very good people. Very genuine people. But I think the Bar Association is the worst group of people in our country. And they have been around for 100 years. They are our best legal minds. What is the rationale? What is the justification for us to be going on a big legal hole? And the Bar Association, as an association, refused to add the voice. When Dick Mitchell sold himself to the public, he used the Bar Association, it appears. Because his opening salvo, his biggest principle, was that he has deep pockets and contacts. And the ordinary man on the ground interpret that statement to mean that the majority of lawyers is supporting him, whether that was the case or not. So why the Bar Association now, as a bar, don't ask this government, will and come again. Tarry a little. Take a second look at it. Don't rush it. Give the people say they did not have opportunity to consult. You said you consulted them. Consult more. You see, consultation could be informing you after the fact. I informed the man. I told him I'm going to kill him. I told him if he remains, they're going to warm him up. I informed him. Consultation sometimes means informing you after the fact. The Bar Association is silent. They have been silent on every conflict in Grenada. I don't know if they believe after conflicts there must be a lot of litigation. So they go make a lot of money. But what's about Grenada? You see, the pension issue is an issue that will affect, if we get it wrong, it's going to affect all Grenadians. Those who pay in tax and those who don't pay tax. Because if the quantum government have to pay become too burdensome, and the Minister of Legal Affairs and the Attorney General, she said we could cause serious damage to the economy. She said irreparable damage. That is an extremely strong word coming from within the bowels of the government. These things must not be ignored. Why, as a people, we ignore it? I notice the Trade Union Council, under the head of the man with the red cap, is extremely quiet on it. I expect some moderate language when it reaches the Senate. That is like United States and America collaborating with Turkey to dismantle Syria, while them and Turkey cussing. Why is it the TUC is so silent? The Grenada Union of Teachers is so silent. Civic organization in the country is silent. And the Bar Association is silent. Well, let me tell you what will happen. If it goes through and in the future irreparable damage is done to the economy, government will have to increase taxes. You don't pay tax on NIS benefit now or pension. You will have to pay tax on that. The tax threshold in Grenada could drop from $3,000 to $1,000. Government would have to cut social programs and capital investment and infrastructure development. More crime could occur. And you with gated communities, you who believe you're heavyweights and you have more money, you would bear the brunt of the social decadence. Remember, it doesn't make much children, you know. You all have 1 or 2 children. And your children might have to leave the country and go. And bandits might plague you like Trinidad and Jamaica today. These are things we could intervene and show government that you shouldn't go down that road. When a government come and does what this government is doing, if you're not careful, when the opposition come in power, they're doing the same thing. And they're saying, where were you when the previous government was there? Like NDC members is saying, no. When you question them, they talk about Kit Mitchell. Although they're doing 100 times worse than any other government that passed. Are you not concerned why this government is telling so much lies? A man's word is his bond. When a man says something, generally he must be believable. Sometimes we excite the truth. Sometimes you sex up the truth. Sometimes you put grand down the truth. But you ought not to be blatantly lying. This present government, led by Dick Mitchell, have told more lies than all leaders put together since 1967. I don't think there is any member of the National Democratic Congress hierarchy or politicos that would challenge me on that. That this present Dick-led government has told more impactful lies, both in quantum and quality, than any other government since 1967. We have to encourage government to be tolerant, to be inclusive, to be forgiving, and to change the mentality for good. Now, when the government is so corrupt, when the government is taking gifts, accepting gifts from big businessmen and multinational corporations, and after you hear government giving them tax break, what you expect next? When government political activists, like the Prince of Hate, the most fractious motivational speaker in the country, and the Iceman, is propagating that government should close down radio station, jail people, hang people in the street. And the Bar Association is silent. When I read your personalities crying out for several weeks now, that drones are flying over the home, and it seems and appears that the purpose is to intimidate, frighten, scare that individual into silence. And Grenadian moralists remain silent. The Bar Association remained silent. The union didn't cry out. That is of concern to us. Deacon have to remember that Maurice Bishop do us. Maurice Bishop came on radio. He said there's a rumor going around. But if you say they say, Bishop say he locking up there, you know. He said if you say they say, he locking up there. People afraid to say they say, you know. We forget what Maurice Bishop and his group did to the people of Monkridge. They describe it as the day Monkridge turned a graveyard. We forget about the castration of Boko. Even Mr. Tillman Thomas felt the heavy weight of the revolution. You forget the song they used to sing? Sit down there and feel the weight of the revel. Stand up there and feel the weight of the revel. That is what they used to say to the people that they intimidate, that they victimize, that they traumatize, that they arrested. Imagine children with tears in their eyes as the militia sing the song, stand up there and feel the weight of the revel, and the parents was in jail. Why is it we want to go back there? Why is those who could reach, those in power, do not say to them, you're going down the wrong trajectory? Maurice Bishop went down that direction. And the most horrendous crime was committed. They cut out Bishop's finger and take a ring. You know. He said, don't let you go to the ring, they trick the ring. Maybe some old thief that want the ring. You know. Use that excuse. And they said the fat one taking long to bone. They killed them. Jacqueline Kreff begged. She pregnant. But by that time, Maurice Bishop was an atheist. They didn't believe in God. So the compassion, the empathy for a pregnant woman was no longer existed. It was only about the ideology. Remember, the communist countries say religion is the high of the people, the opium of the people, the coke of the people. They discourage religion. Yes, you might find some people in the church but they're only using the church as cover. They are sleeper cells. So we watch as we see evil grows in our Prime Minister of Grenada. We look as we see the Marxist Leninists. They see hope. We watch as we see the atheists glad at what happened. Because as far as they're concerned, there is no God. And those who confuse about a sexual orientation, they realized they could fly the colors. Sometimes a people deserve the government they have. But sometimes a people who have a government are not satisfied that they go in the wrong direction, the correct direction. They make attempt to change it. And I believe we should encourage the politicians, including the NNP new leadership, to be tolerant, to be inclusive. We must never forget that word forgiving. Because if nobody appear to do Deacon wrong, and Deacon declare restorative justice, imagine NNP who believe they were wrong. So we have to encourage the NNP to be inclusive. You have to respect other people's opinion. They may not agree with you, but we're going in the same direction. Project Grenada. Grenada is what at stake. So you have to take on board even the communists, the confused, those who are confused about a sexual orientation, and the Marxist Leninists. You still have to welcome them in the party and spend time explaining your policies to them as we go forward. Grenada is a small country. There's a few of us that there. 100,000 sometime, 90,000 when rainfall is a small number. So we have to work together for the good of all. We have to believe that the communists, the Marxist Leninists, the atheists, and those who are confused about a sexual orientation will change. You have to believe we could change it. We can't ignore them. They exist among us. They are our friends. They are our children. They are neighbors. And they are members of your political party. You have to prepare to discuss your policies with them. You have to prepare to encourage them to work together for the good of all. And remember the number to call is 536-2558. And you could give us a call. Or if we have a post that we will read it. But we want to constantly encourage people to be tolerant. Even with your neighbors. Because your neighbor is yellow and you is green, don't mean you must pass your neighbor on the road. It's your neighbor. You must be able to sit down and discuss the politics over a drink. You're not supposed to get angry because I support one color and you support the next. But you have to chastise your government because the government is setting the pace. And I take the strongest issue with the NDC at this time. The Prime Minister of Grenada. He is leading the country down the wrong trajectory, in the wrong direction. He is sowing the seed of bitterness. Too much people are politically victimized. And I want to make a special appeal to the mouthpieces of the NDC, the most fractious motivational speaker, the Iceman, the Prince of Hate, the Riders, Dr. Bob and the others. Ask them to cease and desist from the torturing of Jenny Simon. The drones that are coming over our homes, they are coming to intimidate her. The slowness, the reluctance of the police to act is not right. It is not correct. Because remember, what good for the goose, good for the gander. Remember, under the NNP for about 8 or 10 years, the NDC mouthpiece was there. Some of the things they said, nobody would agree with it, but they were not interfered with in the name of democracy. What is going on with Jenny Simon now is wrong. It's not right. It's not good. And we must express our solidarity with her. The drones that are coming over our homes, irrespective of the amount of time she made communication with the police, and it seems the police are deliberately part and parcel of it, or the police hands are tied behind the back. We have a very good police force. We have a very good track record. We ought not to go down that direction. You open a Pandora box. You fracture in the country. I see even public officers using the professional position to try to intimidate people publicly. It's not right. It's not good. And in light of that, I cry out for our politicians to recognize that they must be tolerant. They must be inclusive. They must also be forgiving. And they must advocate mentality change. We are a small population. Government is the biggest employer in Grenada. So when one government come, remain 5 years, and practice this level of victimization, don't close your eyes and pretend because you support this government is right. It's not right. I call on those in the diaspora. Some of you was responsible. You contributed to the excesses that took place in the Maurice Bishop era. Because when Maurice Bishop reached in foreign land, you hail him. You refuse to object to the castration of Boko and the others. So I call on you. I ask you to be more tolerant. See, reading one post, not much room for patience with him when the acts of dysfunction seems premeditated and intentional. That is the time voice is supposed to ring the most. I'm disappointed that the Bar Association, I'm not talking about individual lawyers now, the Bar Association, the trade union, other inclusive group didn't call on the Minister of Information to investigate the drones that seems to be intimidating. Jenny Simon says. While I'm on that platform, I want to call on the public health inspector in Grenville. Use the same energy you had when you go to mouthpieces that you believe are NNP and try to threaten them. go to the market and threaten the authorities that be because several weeks now the toilet not working. Use the same energy. You went to several individuals who are on radio and social media that appears to be questioning Dickens' action. You went there to threaten them. You was using your profession as a health inspector to try to intimidate them. Go to the market square. Go to the market in Grenville and the authorities that be and inform them you have power. You can bring them up for the toilet in the market to work. Maybe you believe the people in the market are upset with NDC now. No, some of them are supporting NDC. Some of them just get quiet. But as a profession, the Ministry of Health and the Permanent Secretary in Health, what you're doing is wrong. You're using your public service position to play politics. That is not good. And I know that would happen. I know Dickens' action. Some of his mouthpiece was asking to monitor NNP meeting to see if public officers are there. You have been threatening some people in the lower ranks and the public health inspector in Grenville. You've been going to people who you perceive to be NNP that have business and trying to pull your weight around. You have to realize we live under the experiment with Maurice Bishop revolution. And some of us saw thousands of our friends in jail and was still defiant. So use a small fry. Go to the market and make sure the toilet in the market work. My brothers and sisters in the diaspora, you have a powerful voice. Ask Deacon Mitchell and the ministers about the toilet in the market and the public health officer in Grenville that using the profession to try to intimidate so-called perceived opponents of the NDC. We are not opponents. We are your best friend. Some of your friends leading you down the wrong direction. They cause you to sneak in Nigeria. They're causing you to be corrupt. They're not questioning when you get gifts in excess of 30,000 US. You're not supposed to get gifts like that. Somebody give you a gift, you have to retire it. Should make it public. I give it to charity, you can't keep it. And that is bribery. So it's we are your friends, we are your only friends. Those around you may be financially in a better position, so don't expect them to lose their income. So they're telling you what you want to hear. But I am telling you now about the toilet in Grenville and the public health inspector in Grenville who was using their profession to play politics to try to intimidate people. They won't be successful with it. But the rippling effect is my concern. And I want to appeal to the NNP. With all these traumatic things that is going on now, you could also believe my time will come. You have to be inclusive. You have to be tolerant. You have to be all forgiving. And you have to let your people know that they too have to be tolerant. They too have to be inclusive. And we apologize once again for starting later than we expected. Had some technical problems and other logistic problems. But we back with you again on Saturday for another for our program, one on agriculture and one on pure politics. Thank you very much.